Today I want to do a little bit of a thought experiment because so many people talk about locking up your ICP for the 8 years and all the passive income you can make with ICP and all this type of stuff. And so today I want to do a little bit of a thought experiment discussing what would that look like living off of your ICP investment forever with only $20,000. Now, of course, $20,000 is not a small amount of money, but it's also generally not a large enough amount of money that you would think that you would normally be able to live forever off of that type of thing. So I'm going to caveat this a little bit of some different ways because of course you do have to make various assumptions when you do this type of thing. I'm assuming that you are going to be living relatively cheaply or in a low cost country because we have to be somewhat reasonable here, right? Otherwise the price predictions for what ICP would have to do and a lot of that type of stuff would be very, very unrealistic. So, I just want to kind of caveat a little bit of that, but let's go on ahead and jump right in so you can see how we kind of set this up overall. So as I've mentioned, I have put in just $20,000 in my theoretical situation here, and I am looking to potentially make $2,000, $3,000 or $5,000 a month based off of this theory. So what we are going to assume is, because from everything I've been able to read and find out, you can make anywhere between 4 to 8% on these neurons when you're staking in ICP, based on how well you vote and all this type of stuff. So we're going to provide a little bit of a spread here, and then this is also assuming that you have max staked 8 years. You're not doing the time dissolving. You're not doing any of that type of stuff. You are essentially earning the maximum amount of leverage that you can. And then I also wanted to show you kind of what price we would need to start today, which again, this is a bit of an oxymoron because the prices here will not support the ability to start today. But then also we'll talk about compounding for 3 years and then also compounding for 5 years, because a lot of people do talk about ICP and that, they're holding till 2030 and this is what we could see. And so if you were to start today and start essentially compound your ICP for 5 years, these are the prices that you would need to see in the year 2030 to essentially be able to withdraw this level every single month off of your $20,000 ICP investment. So potentially some pretty wild stuff here. So let's get started. First off, I want to talk about if you were to get started today, start withdrawing a month from now or whatever, and you are able to hit these various APY targets, what would you need to see for ICP price? So you can see here, if you were only drawing at about 4% APY and you're looking to make about $2,000 a month, we would need to see ICP price go all the way from about the $4 that it is currently to about $121 here. If you're able to pull closer to a 6% APY, then you could do about $81, and then at an 8% APY, you'd be getting close to about $61. That's what you would need the price of ICP to be in order to be able to withdraw about $2,000 a month. Now let's go take a look at if you were to compound for 3 years. So essentially what this means is like all of the ICP that you are making, you are essentially kind of reinvesting and restaking, locking it up, all same type of thing, no time dilution or any of that type of stuff. It's all maxed to the teeth as best you can get it. What type of ICP price would we need to see then? Well, here you can see the numbers actually do drop fairly substantially. You can see here on a 4% APY withdrawing $2,000 a month, you'd be looking at about $108 ICP, about $68 needed for the 6% APY, and then about $48 would be the ICP price needed if you were able to pull 8% APY and you were looking to withdraw $2,000 a month. Now, something like this, as I've mentioned, this is going to be meager living, probably somewhere in Southeast Asia, if I had to guess, but you don't have to work anymore and you can live forever, or you could potentially use this to augment, something else that you want to do. Maybe this pays for your housing and you can now start being an entrepreneur, or whatever. You can dream of how you want to spend this money in your own way. But you can see the next one that we'd be having is a 5-year compounding. So if we were to essentially take all of the ICP that we made, reinvest it immediately back into the neuron, stake it for the 8 years, all of this type of stuff, as we've already explained, we would be needing to see these types of ICP prices for us to be withdrawing $2,000 a month. Now here, if we are doing it about 4%, we would need about $100 ICP for this to actually work successfully. At 6%, we'd be needing to get closer to about $61. The same amount as if we were earning 8% starting today. So as you can see, it's fairly obvious that the better you can get on the APY really makes a massive difference here. And then here you can see kind of at the best number, the lowest number that we've got for the $2,000 a month category, you need about $41 ICP in order to be making about $2,000 a month off of your 20, which that's pretty good. I mean, that's obviously a really, really nice return there, but we would need to see ICP just do a little bit over a 10x. However, this doesn't feel too unreasonable given that we did see a $20 ICP kind of within the past 2 years. So I do think that there is a possibility we could see something like that. Again, now sustaining that type of price, I do think would be rather difficult unless we saw a major amount of development actually heading onto the ICP network, the cycle burn rate really, really going up, the inflation getting curbed pretty heavily. I think if we were to see a lot of that, then of course we could support this type of price. Now I want to go and take a look at the $3,000 a month, and you can see I'm actually just going to go over all of them at once because we've kind of been through kind of what each of these mean. And so if we unhide, you can see this range is anywhere from about 182 on the high side, and then down to about $62 is what you would need on the low side after compounding for 5 years and hitting that 8% APY. So again, things still looking pretty high, but if you are a very strong believer in ICP, obviously there's a lot of people who are kind of looking at that $100 range. If we're highlighting all of these that kind of get us in or near that $100 range, there's actually a decent bit here that would allow you to live on your ICP or live on your $20,000 ICP investment forever off of this, depending on who you are, potentially somewhat reasonable price target, depending, again, how bullish you are on ICP. There's a lot of people who think that that will never happen, but those who are bullish on ICP, you can see the majority of both of these actually have been kind of, let's say, at or around or at or below that $100 range. So I do think that that is pretty interesting to see. Now, of course, we do have the $5,000 a month, which is coming right along here, and we will see this actually be much, much higher. Obviously, $5,000 a month is a substantial leap from what we have seen before. But if you can see this, you were to start today, you hit that 8% APY target that is, it seems achievable. Again, drop your comments in the comment section below if you personally have seen, if these rates seem kind of on track to you. Are they high? Are they low? What are your what are your thoughts here? But then let's take a look at kind of what we see here. Well, obviously, we need to see a $300 ICP if we were to start today and we were only doing about 4%. The all-time high of ICP is almost $500 here. So there is that possibility, that potentially we could get there. I personally find it highly, highly unlikely, but anything is possible, right? But if we do get kind of to the lower end here in terms of price, and you are compounding for 5 years until 2030, and you're able to kind of hit this 8% rate, you could theoretically live forever on $5,000 a month with your $20,000 investment, which is crazy to think that you would be making $60,000 a year in perpetuity off of a $20,000 initial investment. But of course, in order to see that, we would need to see like a 25x from here, hitting $103, and we would need to kind of hit that $100 ICP level. Again, we've had a lot of people talk about, how that does seem like a reasonable goal and how that is something that we could see. Of course, we would need to see major changes to what, from what we've seen already so far with ICP. Caffeine AI would need to have somewhat of a cursor moment where it is just everything that everybody is using, and it's the best thing since sliced bread and a lot of this type of stuff. If we did see that, I do see a world in which we could get there, but it will take a while, and I do think we would need to see a lot of different things change. I personally do remain hopeful that we could see something like this happen. However, I'm not 100% sure if we will see this happen. Of course, this seems to be if we're just playing in the world of odds, a fairly low likelihood chance of being able to live on $5,000 a month off a $20,000 investment. It seems relatively low in terms of likelihood, but if it does hit, you are going to be living forever, off of one investment that you've made, which it would of course be very, very cool. So we will have to see how ICP does kind of continue on into the future. As we have mentioned several times on this channel, it does seem to be a little bit of a longer play than just this cycle. So I do remain kind of bullish that we could see that, but we have to continue to see good work being done, traction being made, and a lot of people getting interested in the ICP ecosystem. I do think a lot of the right steps are being taken from a technological perspective, but marketing, we still are kind of lacking a little bit there. So I'll be interested to see kind of what rabbits they have to pull out of various hats. But I would love to know your thoughts here. What are your thoughts on this kind of thought experiment? Do you agree with these prices? Do you think that this is completely delusional? Do you need to be having a much larger initial investment? If you have a much larger initial investment, of course, that could increase the kind of passive income that you're making per month as well. There's a whole bunch of different kind of levers that you can pull here. I would love to hear your thoughts on kind of which levers you'd be looking at pulling and what kind of results you'd be getting from that. Also, just if you found the information in this video useful, entertaining, helpful, any of that type of thing, I'd also love a like and a subscribe. It does, of course, really help me out and continue to grow the channel, which is, of course, kind of my main goal here. So thank you all so much for all of your help and attention and for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.